I'd been dropped into the plot of some trashy, melodramatic novel, and my fiancée was tearfully begging me to donate a kidney to her one true love. I looked at the angelic woman before me and raised an eyebrow. A kidney? Sure, but it all depends on how you play your cards. Tears glistening in her eyes, she began to remove her clothes, piece by piece. I didn't hesitate. I'd enjoy the main course before making any decisions. As they say, waste is a terrible crime. I'm the kind of guy who cleans his plate down to the last grain of rice. And after the meal, I wipe my mouth, get up, and walk away. Julian's getting worse, Leo. Please, just for my sake, will you give him your kidney? The woman standing before me was the picture of elegance in straight-leg trousers and a knit sweater. She was tall, with a figure that was all dangerous curves, and a face so perfect it seemed unreal. You couldn't find a single flaw, couldn't look away. Right now, she was holding out a medical file, her eyes red-rimmed and brimming with a vulnerability designed to break a man's heart. But the words coming out of her mouth made my skin crawl. A kidney? You think that's something you just hand over to someone? I was about to refuse when a flood of memories, not my own, rushed into my brain. I'd been transplanted into a novel. The title was something like My Fiancée Gave My Kidney to Her First Love, and after I left, she went insane. The title alone told you how much of a train wreck it was. Stella Hayes, the woman in front of me, was the female lead. My fiancée. In the book, our engagement was a corporate merger sealed with a marriage. We were supposed to be close, with a wedding just around the corner. Then he came back. Julian Croft, her long-lost love. He'd returned with end-stage renal disease, and they couldn't find a suitable donor. During one of his chats with Stella, Julian had let a comment slip. It's funny, Leo Vance even looks a bit like me. If we were tested for a match, the chances of success might be. He trailed off, his eyes darting to Stella's face to gauge her reaction. His words stunned her. She stopped peeling the apple in her hands, her brow furrowing. Leo Vance was her fiancé, the heir to the Vance Corporation. And while the original Leo was utterly devoted to her, would have given her the moon and the stars, this was too much. Even if Leo agreed, his family never would. Julian, I've already put out a nationwide search for a donor, Stella had said, her voice a soft, soothing balm as she handed him the apple. Don't worry, we'll find one. I'll call them again in a bit to push things along. Julian didn't take the apple. His face fell, becoming a mask of gray despair. His eyes went hollow, as if he'd lost the will to live. He turned away, his voice a low, raspy whisper. Stella, I was just talking. He's the heir to the Vance fortune. How could I ever expect him to donate a kidney to me? I know my body. I don't have much time left. This is just my fate. Cough, cough. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm just afraid that in a world without me, you'll be bullied, and I won't be there to protect you. It was a masterclass in guilt tripping, and he'd delivered it with a straight face. They had known each other since childhood, and it was always Stella, with her high society background, who had taken care of him. When he'd wanted to go abroad, the Hayes family paid for everything. He'd spent his time overseas partying, living it up without a care in the world, and completely wrecked his kidneys. Only then did he remember Stella and come crawling back. But those impossibly fake words hit Stella like a gospel. Julian, don't worry, she'd said, her voice thick with emotion. I won't just stand by and watch you die. As long as there's a glimmer of hope, I won't give up. I'm going back right now to get Leo to come in for a compatibility test. With that, she'd rushed out of the hospital room, her panic so palpable you'd think Julian was on his deathbed right that second. As he watched her go, a triumphant smirk spread across his pale face. Back in the present, Stella had started her campaign to convince Leo. In the original story, Leo was a complete doormat, but he wasn't an idiot. He'd fought hard against the idea of donating a kidney. They'd argued several times, but Julian kept calling Stella, sounding weaker with each passing day. Stella, in turn, had ramped up the pressure on Leo. Just as he was about to break down and agree, I arrived. Looking at this stunning woman, who was on the verge of threatening suicide to get what she wanted, a thought lit up my mind. The original Leo never even got to touch her before the story ended. First, she insisted on saving herself for their wedding night. Later, when she was finally willing, he no longer wanted her. If I was going to change the plot, I might as well start by claiming the female lead. Perhaps my heated gaze made her uncomfortable. Stella took a step back, putting some distance between us. Leo, don't worry. The experts say living with one kidney is the same as living with two. If the match is successful and we save Julian, we'll get married right away. Her words pissed me off. She was treating me like a complete fool. But I didn't argue with her because there was no way in hell I was giving him a kidney. I swallowed my anger and stepped forward, closing the distance until I was almost pressed against her. A playful smile touched my lips as my eyes raked over her body. The move seemed to frighten her. In her eyes, Leo had always been the perfect gentleman, completely subservient to her wishes. He'd never been this aggressive. "Leo, what are you doing? You're scaring me. I can go get tested. And if it's a match, I can even donate the kidney. But that all depends on your performance." My performance? Stella's brow furrowed in confusion. Then she saw the look on my face and understood. "Leo, as long as you donate your kidney to Julian, we'll have our wedding immediately. We'll have 2 kids, a boy and a girl. And I'll spend the rest of my life." Enough. I cut her off. I wasn't hungry, and I had no interest in the empty promises she was serving up. Since we were past the point of pretending, I'd be direct. I want it now. "Leo, listen to me. I'll be yours sooner or later. So why the rush? You've never tried to force me before." She was right. The original Leo had his moments of impulse, but he always respected her refusal. If you're going to be mine sooner or later, why not sooner? What if donating a kidney creates complications later on? You have 2 choices today. Either you agree to my terms, or he can go die. Stella's fists clenched, and tears streamed down her cheeks. I just stood there, my expression unwavering, watching her. Seeing I wouldn't budge, she let out a sigh and made her decision. Her hands moved slowly, unbuttoning her blouse. One by one, her clothes fluttered to the floor. Laughing, I swept her into my arms and carried her toward the bedroom. "Leo, be gentle. You're hurting me." She struggled in my arms, her voice a choked sob, but she didn't dare raise it, as if trying to suppress something. "Shut up." I glared down at her, my voice ice cold. "When you were asking for my fucking kidney, did you stop to think if it would hurt me? Now you're worried about pain?" Too late. That night was exceptionally long. I unleashed all the pent-up frustration I'd felt reading the novel, without a trace of tenderness. At first, Stella wept silently. Later, she was just numb, enduring it like a soulless doll. I didn't stop until 4 in the morning. She was curled up in a corner of the bed like a broken toy, her back to me, shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. Her hair was a mess, splayed across her back, her skin still marked from the night. She looked utterly wrecked. At 5, she shook me awake. "Leo, get up. We have to go to the hospital." Her voice was raw, and she looked exhausted. "We have an appointment to do the tissue typing for Julian this morning. We can't be late." I opened my eyes and looked at her, already dressed and ready to go. A wave of irritation washed over me. I'd gotten a single fucking hour of sleep. For Julian, she was really pulling out all the stops. In a VIP room at the private hospital, the heavy scent of antiseptic made me uneasy. Julian was lying in bed, his face pale, but his lips were unnaturally red. The room was luxurious. He was covered with an expensive silk comforter, with fresh fruit and flowers on the bedside table. He looked less like a critical patient with kidney failure and more like he was on a spa vacation. When we walked in, his eyes first fell on Stella, a flicker of delight crossing his face before it vanished. Then he turned to me, greeting me with forced enthusiasm. "Stella, Leo, you're here." Cough, cough. His voice was faint as he struggled to sit up. His hand barely made it to the edge of the bed before he swayed, looking like he might pass out at any moment. Maybe we should forget about the test. It's too much trouble for Leo. This is my fate. I shouldn't drag you both down. Cough, cough. There was again that familiar, passive-aggressive bullshit. You could smell a mile away. Play the victim, lay on the guilt trip, and paint yourself as a martyr. He had the whole routine down. Stella immediately rushed forward, full of concern. She grabbed his arm, gently easing him back onto the bed. "Julian, don't say that," she chided. "Leo already agreed to do the test. He wants to help you. Don't worry. Everything's going to be okay." "Really?" Julian looked at me, his eyes shining as if he were seeing his savior. But deep down, I could see a glint of provocation and triumph. "Leo, thank you so much. I knew you were just as kind as Stella. Why get better? I'll be indebted to you forever. I'll do whatever you ask." I leaned against the doorframe, my hands in my pockets, and watched his pathetic performance, trying not to laugh out loud. With acting skills like that, he dared to play the part of the unforgettable first love? No wonder he could only fool a love-struck idiot in a novel. "Forget about being indebted," I sneered, my tone dripping with undisguised sarcasm. "The only thing I do with my livestock is slaughter them for meat." Just then, my eyes landed on the nightstand next to his bed. On it were 2 empty takeout containers, scraped clean. "You're eating this much so early in the morning? Looks like you've got a healthy appetite." The smile on Julian's face froze. He looked down, coughing pitifully. Cough, cough. "The doctor said eating more helps build resistance. I'm forcing myself to eat." Leo, how can you talk like that? Stella shot me a glare, then gently patted Julian's back to help him catch his breath. She turned back to me, her eyes full of reproach. Julian is genuinely grateful to you. How would you say that to him? He's already so sick. Can't you just cut him some slack? I watched her protect him like a mother hen and laughed coldly to myself. Of course, the female leads in these web novels were always blind and stupid. His act was so obvious, but in her eyes, Julian would always be the frail, helpless love of her life. And me? I was just a disposable tool, someone she could sacrifice and scold at will. All right, let's get down to business, I said, waving my hand dismissively, tired of their drama. Aren't we here for a compatibility test? Let's get it over with. Don't waste my time. I got a mountain of work to deal with at the office. Afraid I'd say something else to upset Julian, Stella grabbed my wrist and pulled me out of the room. Let's go. The doctor is waiting. We can't keep him waiting. The test required a blood draw and a series of exams. A nurse led me to the phlebotomy lab. The cold needle pierced my arm, drawing several vials of blood. The sting made me wince. Stella stood nearby, her expression anxious, her mind solely focused on a successful match. She didn't even ask if it hurt. After it was all done, I made an excuse about needing the restroom and slipped away to the doctor's office, looking for the man in charge of the testing. Dr. Martin. He looked to be in his 40s, with gold-rimmed glasses and a white coat, projecting an air of gentle professionalism. Dr. Martin, I'd like to ask you something. Can we speak in private for a moment? I pulled him into a deserted corner of the hallway where we could talk. Mr. Vance, is there a problem? Dr. Martin pushed his glasses up, his face fixed with a professional smile. I wasn't in the mood to beat around the bush. I pulled a blank check from my pocket and flicked it between my fingers. Let's not play games. How much did Julian Croft offer you to help him convince Stella Hayes? To fake his diagnosis? If you work with me, I'll double it. The doctor's expression changed instantly. The smile froze on his face, his eyes darting around. He tried to maintain his composure, his voice suddenly stern and righteous. Mr. Vance, what are you implying? I don't understand. As doctors, we have a code of ethics. Compatibility testing is a serious medical procedure, not something that can be bought. I must ask you to respect my profession. 5 times. Dr. Martin's Adam's apple bobbed. A fine sheen of sweat appeared on his forehead. He glanced left and right, making sure no one was around, before lowering his voice. Mr. Vance, you're putting me in a very difficult position. I've been practicing medicine for decades. I've never done something like this. 10 times. The doctor's breathing became noticeably heavier. His face flushed red, and the hand holding his stethoscope began to tremble. He was silent for a few seconds, his eyes again scanning the hallway. Mr. Vance, you've really got the wrong guy. I'm not that kind of person. He was still refusing, but his tone had softened considerably. I'd seen his type before. He just wanted me to raise the stakes. I put the check back in my pocket. Then I'm sorry to have bothered you. I've changed my mind. I'm not donating the kidney, which means you won't be getting his money either. That did it. Dr. Martin panicked. He grabbed my arm, his face plastered with an obsequious smile. His voice was full of pleading. Wait, let's talk about this. I'll listen to you. I'll do whatever you say, okay? I sneered internally. So much for ethics. In the face of enough money, all that bullshit about principles went out the window. How much did he promise you? I asked, curious to see what his so-called medical ethics were worth. Dr. Martin scratched his head, embarrassed. He stammered, 200,000. 200 grand? He had to be fucking kidding me. He was taking me for a sucker. In Julian's current state, he couldn't come up with that kind of money if you sold him for parts. In that case, let's put this on hold. I think I need to see a neurologist first. What's wrong? Nothing. I just feel like my head's getting a little swollen from being played for a fool. Dr. Martin got my meaning. He lowered his head and mumbled 10,000. 10,000. I raised my voice intentionally, my tone mocking. Dr. Martin, your ethics are a bit on the cheap side, aren't they? 10 grand is all it takes for you to sell out your professional integrity and help a con artist steal a kidney? Aren't you afraid of getting caught? The old doctor's face turned crimson. He managed a pathetic, awkward smile. Mr. Vance, you can't put it like that. I was just. Look, expenses at home are high. I've got parents and kids to support. It's a tough life, but don't you worry. Whatever you need, I'll get it done for you. All right, cut the crap. I interrupted him and pointed at the check. Do as I say. Why, yes. Yes, of course. Understood. Dr. Martin nodded and bowed, a grin stretching from ear to ear. Mr. Vance, you can count on me. This is a piece of cake. I guarantee no one will ever find out. I'll go make the arrangements right away. With Dr. Martin handled, I walked back in a much better mood. Stella was waiting anxiously. What happened? Did they finish the draw? What did the doctors say? She asked, rushing up to me, her eyes filled with urgency. Yeah, it's done. I nodded nonchalantly. Doctor said, we just have to wait for the results. Should be a week or two. Let's go home. Nothing to do here now. Stella wanted to go check on Julian again, but I grabbed her arm. He has nurses and aides to look after him. Why do you need to be involved? We're going home. She hesitated for a moment, but ultimately followed me. I knew her mind was on Julian, but for now, she still needed me for the test, and she didn't dare cross me. According to procedure, the results would take 1 to 2 weeks. During that time, Stella was a very busy woman. By day, she found time to take care of Julian. By night, she came home promptly to fulfill her duties as my fiancée, completely submissive to my every demand. I didn't care whether her heart was in it or not. It wasn't like I was planning on marrying her. I was enjoying the peace. I spent my days either at the office, skillfully managing the company the original Leo had left behind, or out with friends playing golf and drinking. Life was good, and at night, I enjoyed Stella's services. 2 weeks later, the day the test results were to be announced finally arrived. In the hospital office, Dr. Martin held the doctored report, cleared his throat, and said, Mr. Vance, Ms. Hayes, the results are in. It's a successful match. The surgery can be scheduled at any time. Stella burst into tears of joy. She threw her arms around me, her tears soaking my shirt. Leo, this is wonderful. Julian is saved, she choked out. Thank you. Thank you so much. I gently pushed her away, my face a mask of indifference. Since it's a match, let's schedule the surgery as soon as possible. No point in delaying. Right. I'll go arrange it right now. Stella nodded eagerly and turned to call Julian with the good news, her voice overflowing with a joy she couldn't hide. The surgery date was set quickly. Before entering the operating room, Julian was wheeled over on a gurney. He offered some polite, thankful words, but I didn't pay them any mind. Inside the OR, Julian and I lay on adjacent operating tables. A nurse came over to administer the anesthesia, the cold liquid flowing through the 4 into our bodies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I counted silently. Just as I expected, before I even reached 10, Julian's head lolled to the side. He was out cold, a faint, triumphant smile still lingering on his lips. Meanwhile, I sat up briskly. I looked over at the unconscious Julian and then smiled at Dr. Martin and a handful of assistants he'd brought in on the deal. Let's begin. According to plan, to make it look real, Julian and Dr. Martin had agreed beforehand to just make a superficial incision on me and stitch it up. Since that was the case, I decided I'd play along and give him a real one. We'd be taking one of his kidneys. Dr. Martin nodded and signaled his assistants to prepare. The team worked quickly, disinfecting Julian, draping him in sterile cloths, and then making a clean incision across his abdomen with a scalpel. An hour later, a fresh, healthy kidney was removed from his body. I leaned against the wall, watching them work, a sense of amusement washing over me. This was what you called poetic justice. But this was only the first step. The real show was yet to come. A few hours later, the light above the operating room door went out. Stella rushed forward, her face etched with anxiety. Doctor, how did it go? Was the surgery a success? Dr. Martin removed his mask, his expression a mixture of fatigue and satisfaction. He nodded. Don't worry, Ms. Hayes. The surgery was a complete success. Mr. Vance's kidney has been successfully transplanted into Mr. Croft. They both need plenty of rest now. Stella let out a long sigh of relief, a smile spreading across her face. She first ran to Julian's bedside, looking at his pale face, her eyes welling up as she gently took his hand. Julian, you're okay, she whispered. Thank God. Only then did she turn and walk over to my bed. She took my hand, her voice laced with a hint of guilt and gratitude. Leo, thank you. You went through so much. When you've recovered, we'll get married. The way she acted, you'd think Julian was her fiancé, and I was just the good Samaritan who'd saved him. I closed my eyes, not wanting to look at her, and just gave a faint grunt in response. It didn't matter anyway. I hadn't actually gone through anything, and a little time to recover in the hospital suited me just fine. In the days that followed, Julian and I recovered in the hospital. I put on a show of lying in bed, enjoying Stella's attentive care. Life was quite comfortable. Julian, on the other hand, had actually gone under the knife. Missing a kidney and with a painful incision, he groaned and moaned all day. His act of utter weakness only seemed to intensify Stella's protective instincts. Stella became a whirlwind of activity, running between her company and the hospital. It was during this time that Julian's true colors began to show. He would secretly text me, trying to stir up trouble. Sometimes it was a photo of him looking frail in his hospital bed while Stella gently fed him soup. The caption would read, "Leo, Stella is working so hard taking care of me. She's barely sleeping. It breaks my heart to see her so tired. She's treating you this way. Why are you still with her? Doesn't it bother you?" I looked at the picture of Stella's meticulous care and laughed out loud. I texted back, "Why would I leave? She's a beautiful woman, and I'm not done with her yet. Don't be in such a hurry. I'll give her to you when I'm bored." Seconds after I sent the message, my phone buzzed with several minute-long voice messages. I didn't bother listening. He was probably furious. A couple of days later, he sent a video. In it, Stella was sitting by his bed, holding his hand, whispering words of comfort. The scene was sickeningly sweet. The caption read, "Leo, I know you love Stella, but you can't force happiness. Her heart belongs to me. Why don't you do us all a favor and let her go? A man with your resources can find any woman you want." I scoffed. "Do you a favor? Not my style." Staring at the screen, I sneered. The fucking nerve of this guy. I'd see how long he could keep this up. 3 weeks later, we were finally discharged. I thought I'd get some peace and quiet, but Julian's audacity knew no bounds. He actually suggested moving in with Stella, into our penthouse. His excuse was, "I just had major surgery. I'm weak and need someone to look after me. It's too hard for Stella to run back and forth every day. If I stay at your place, it'll be easier for her to take care of me, and she can get some rest too." And Stella was actually considering it. She looked at me with pleading eyes. "Leo, Julian just had surgery. He really does need someone to look after him. It will be more convenient if he stayed with us. Please, just for a little while. As soon as he's stronger, he'll move out." I laughed. I actually fucking laughed. The sheer, unmitigated gall. First, they take my kidney, and now he wants to move into my home? Do they take me for a complete idiot? When Julian was wheeled through the front door of our penthouse by Stella, he shot me a provocative look, his eyes gleaming with triumph, as if declaring victory. I strode forward, grabbed him by the collar of his shirt, and, ignoring his fresh wound, hauled him right out of the wheelchair. He was surprisingly light, like a paper doll. "Leo, what are you doing? Let Julian go. He just had surgery." Stella screamed, lunging at me, trying to pull me off him. I shoved her away, and she stumbled and fell to the floor. "Just had surgery? He looks perfectly fine to me." I sneered, then smashed my fist into Julian's face. "Arg!" He shrieked as blood exploded from his nose, splattering onto my hand, warm and metallic. "You want to live in my penthouse? Who the fuck do you think you are?" I cursed, raining punches and kicks on him, deliberately aiming for his surgical wound. He writhed on the floor in agony. A pathetic leech who lives off women. "You really think you're somebody? You want to strut around on my turf? You've been reading too many of your own bullshit stories. Leo, you're insane. Stop. Stop it." Stella scrambled to her feet and threw herself at me, grabbing my arm and trying to pull me back. "You're going to kill him. Get off me." I threw her off again. She collapsed to the floor, this time bursting into tears. I pointed at Julian, who was curled up on the ground like a beaten dog. "Stella, take a good look." I roared. "This is the precious man you were willing to die for. What can he do besides play the victim and stir up trouble? He's a fucking coward. And for him, you were willing to sacrifice your fiancée to give away your own home. Are you out of your mind?" Julian, curled on the floor, was in too much pain to speak. He could only whimper, glaring at me with pure, unadulterated hatred. It was a completely different face from the one he'd worn before the transplant. He crawled over to Stella, sobbing, and clung to her leg. "Stella, he's trying to kill me," he wailed. "I'm calling the police. I'm going to sue him." "The police? Sue me?" I looked at him with contempt, then crouched down and patted his cheek. I held out my phone to him. "Go ahead. Need my help. While you're at it, have the cops investigate whether you ever actually had end-stage renal disease. And don't forget, this is my house. You're the one who brazenly trespassed. If I beat you to death, it's called self-defense." My words turned Julian's face white. The hand he had raised to take my phone retreated. He was speechless, trembling uncontrollably. Stella looked at his pathetic state, her heart aching for him. She quickly pulled out her phone and called an ambulance. The ambulance arrived shortly and took Julian away. Stella went with them. She didn't come back that night. A few days later, Stella returned. She was pale as a sheet, with dark circles under her eyes. Her hair was a mess, and she wouldn't meet my gaze. She just stood in the entryway, looking utterly exhausted, wanting to say something but unable to start. I was lounging on the sofa, watching TV, pretending not to see her. But I knew. The fish was about to take the bait. After a few minutes, she couldn't stand it anymore. She walked over to the sofa, her voice hoarse. Leo, I need to talk to you. Talk, I said without looking up, my tone flat, as if speaking to a stranger. Stella bit her lip. Tears suddenly started streaming down her face. She dropped her knees in front of me with a thud, grabbing my legs. Leo, she sobbed, Julian, his liver is failing. It's severe. The doctor said he needs a transplant immediately, or he won't live another month. I smirked to myself. Here we go. Julian was getting desperate. It seemed he was ready to ask for my heart and soul now. And I finally looked at her. You want my liver now? Leo, I'm begging you. She clung to me tighter, her tears soaking my pants. This is the last time, I swear. The doctor said there's a 30% chance of success. There's still a good chance. If you do it, I'll agree to anything. 30%. I looked at her as if she'd just told the world's greatest joke. I shot to my feet and stared down at her, my eyes filled with scorn. Which means I have a 70% chance of dying. Stella, you actually want me dead. For Julian, you're willing to sacrifice my life. She flinched, her body trembling. Her eyes darted away, unable to meet mine. I'll find the best surgeons in the country to operate, she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. I'll make sure you're safe. Leo, please believe me. Looking at her like this, a part of me, the part that had possessed her, felt a flicker of pity. I decided to give her one last chance. A chance for both of us to see just how far her stupidity went. I knelt down, grabbed her chin, and forced her to look at me. Stella, look me in the eye and tell me, are you really planning to ask me to risk a 70% chance of death for Julian Croft? In your heart, is his life more important than mine? She couldn't meet my gaze. Her eyelashes fluttered as tears rolled down her cheeks, dripping onto my hand. After a few seconds of silence, she seemed to make up her mind. She threw her arms around me, sobbing. Leo, if you do this, you still have a chance to live. But if you don't, Julian, he will absolutely die. After this, no matter what happens, we'll get married immediately. Everything I have will be yours. I'll be good to you for the rest of my life. She was a lost cause. Even though she had been my woman, a woman like this deserved no pity. I pushed her away, my face devoid of all emotion. Fine, I said coldly. I'll do it. A wave of relief washed over Stella's face. She grabbed my hand, her voice shaking with excitement. Really? Leo, thank you. Thank you so much. I knew you were the best to me. But my voice turned to ice as I cut her off. I have conditions. What conditions? Tell me. As long as I can do it, I'll agree to anything, she said eagerly, desperation shining in her eyes. Transfer all of your shares in Hayes Industries to my name. I said each word slowly, leaving no room for negotiation. What? Stella froze, the smile wiped from her face. She stared at me in disbelief, as if she hadn't heard me correctly. Why? Leo, we're about to get married. What's mine is yours, isn't it? It will all belong to our children one day. Why do you need the shares transferred now? Cut the crap. I interrupted impatiently, my voice dripping with disgust. Addicted to making empty promises? I'm about to go into a life-or-death surgery for you, and you can't even show this little bit of sincerity? If you're not serious, then forget it. Let him rot in the hospital. I made a move to stand up and leave. No, don't. I'll do it. I agree. Stella panicked, grabbing my arm. We'll get the paperwork done tomorrow, she sobbed. The shares are all yours, as long as you save Julian. Watching her so easily sign away her family's legacy for another man, I felt nothing but a profound coldness. The heroine of this novel was a special kind of stupid. So unbelievably, tragically stupid. And because of that, I felt absolutely no guilt in taking what she offered. The next day, we went to the law firm and the state business registry. Under the guise of a prenuptial asset transfer, she signed over all of her shares in Hayes Industries to me. As I watched her signature dry on the documents, I knew it was all coming to an end. With the paperwork finalized, I was once again wheeled into an operating room. The process was much the same as before. Stella waited anxiously outside, believing that this time, Julian's life would truly be saved. Inside the nurse administered the anesthesia. The familiar routine began again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I counted in my head. After 5 seconds, Julian's head slumped to the side. He was out. I sat up, stretched my arms and legs, and turned to DR. Martin, put them in. Put what in, Mr. Vance? DR. Martin asked, looking utterly bewildered. The organs he had on standby, I said, a cold smile spreading across my face. The failing heart and liver he procured in case of an unforeseen accident. Transplant them into him. DR. Martin and his assistants gasped. Their faces went pale, and they began to tremble. They knew exactly what this meant. This wasn't surgery. This was murder. Mr. Vance, this is murder. We can't. Dr. Martin's voice shook as he stammered. If anyone finds out, we're all finished. Murder? I sneered, my gaze sweeping over them like a razor. All sorts of accidents can happen on the operating table, can't they? Julian Croft was already critically ill. Multiple organ failure leading to an unsuccessful rescue attempt. Sounds perfectly normal, doesn't it? You're the doctors. Do I need to teach you how to write a surgical report? You weren't worried about murder when you were coming after my kidney, were you? It's too late for regrets now. You'll do exactly as I say. Otherwise, you know the consequences. I didn't have to finish the sentence. The threat hung heavy in the air. Trapped between a massive payday and my intimidation, Dr. Martin and his team finally caved. They knew there was no turning back. A true surgery from hell began, all without Julian's knowledge. They carefully transplanted the failing heart and liver into his body, their movements swift, trying to leave no trace. Several hours later, the surgery was over. Julian was wheeled out. Stella rushed forward. Doctor, how did it go? Was it a success? Dr. Martin nodded. Don't worry, Ms. Hayes. The surgery was a success. The liver transplant went perfectly. Now, with proper rest, he should slowly begin to recover. Stella let out a long breath, crying with relief and thanking the doctor profusely, completely unaware that the man she worshipped had just been pushed into the abyss. But I knew. Julian's life was now on a countdown. Over the next month, Julian writhed in agony. The failing organs couldn't sustain him. Complications arose one after another. He suffered from constant high fevers and unbearable pain. His days were filled with blood-curdling screams. He was living a fate worse than death. Stella stayed by his bedside day and night, barely eating or sleeping. She grew visibly thinner, her eyes bloodshot, her mental state deteriorating until she was on the verge of a complete breakdown. I watched from the sidelines, occasionally visiting the hospital to make a few snide remarks. Every visit was enough to make his eyes roll back in his head with rage. 1 month later, after enduring unimaginable torture, Julian Croft finally died. His face was twisted in a grotesque mask of pain, making him look hideous even in death. Stella held a lavish funeral for him. After it was over, she came to find me. She looked haggard, her eyes red and swollen, her face pale. She had lost a lot of weight. She grabbed my hand and, as if nothing had changed, said, Leo, Julian's funeral is over. Let's go register our marriage. You promised me we would get married after the surgery. I looked at her and felt like I was witnessing the punchline to a cosmic joke. Slowly, deliberately, I pulled my hand from her grasp. Marriage. My voice was light, laced with thick mockery. Stella, are you okay? I don't recall ever agreeing to marry you. She looked as if she'd been struck by lightning. She stood frozen, the color draining from her face. The hope in her eyes shattered, replaced by disbelief and despair. Leo, don't joke like that. It's not funny. I did everything you asked. I gave you myself. I gave you my company shares. You promised me. You can't go back on your word. What did I promise you? I cleaned out my ear, feigning indifference. I promised to have this surgery, didn't I? And I did. As for marriage? When did I ever promise you that? That was all in your head. Besides, my family has already arranged for me to meet someone new. Someone 100 times better than you. At the very least, she wouldn't try to give my kidney away for her old flame. Right on cue, my phone rang. It was Claire Sterling, the gentle and kind-hearted woman from a good family who was the supporting female lead in the original novel. I answered the call right in front of Stella, my voice instantly softening. Hey, babe. Yeah, I'm just wrapping up a small matter here, don't worry. You want Cantonese for dinner tonight? Sure, whatever you want. I'll book a table. I miss you too. I hung up and looked at Stella, who looked like her world was collapsing around her. I felt nothing. See, I said coldly, that's my future wife. She's gentle, kind, and understands what matters. Not like you. You'd sell out your own fiancé for another man. Give away your family's legacy without a second thought. You, a woman who would carve out her fiancé's kidney and liver for someone else. Leo Vance doesn't want a woman like that. Leo, I know I was wrong. Please, just give me one more chance. I have nothing left but you. Stella completely broke down, lunging at me hysterically, clinging to me like a madwoman. It took considerable effort to pry her off me. I shouted toward the door. Security. 2 large bodyguards entered immediately. Get this crazy woman out of here, I said coldly. And from now on, she's not to set foot in this building again. If she tries to cause any more trouble, call the police. Yes, sir, one of them replied. They grabbed Stella's arms without ceremony and dragged her out. Her screams and pleas faded into the distance and finally disappeared. I looked at the empty doorway and breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, there was peace. 6 months later, Claire and I held a grand and beautiful wedding that was the talk of the city. Claire was kind, considerate, and intelligent. With her, I found true happiness. We were equals, supporting each other, and our company flourished. Life was good. As for Stella, I would occasionally hear news of her from friends. They said the shock had been too much, that she had lost her mind. Having lost her shares in Hayes Industries, she was completely abandoned by her family. With no source of income, her life fell apart. Someone said they sometimes saw a woman in a janitor's uniform in the early hours of the morning, sweeping the streets with a numb, vacant expression, her figure eerily similar to the once dazzling heiress of the Hayes family. But none of that had anything to do with me anymore. I wrapped my arm around my beautiful new bride, looked out the window at the bright sunshine, and smiled. A new life was just beginning. All the toxic people and painful memories were finally in the past. End of text.